Listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to the webinar on how to use your DAM to bring your brand to life. A very special thanks to Henry Stewart, who organized the event. And before we begin, we'll tell you a little bit about IntelligenceBank to put context around the discussion that we're about to have. Then we'll review some live case studies on how marketers have leveraged their DAM to manage their brand. And lastly, we'll leave you with three of our hottest tips on creating brand consistency. So just first, a little bit about IntelligenceBank, who are sponsoring the event today. IntelligenceBank is a software company that focuses on creating business process applications. So while our digital asset management software is a place to centralize all your creative assets, probably what we're most interested in is helping clients manage their processes, be it creative development or managing their brand with internal and external stakeholders. Our mission, or rather brand promise to you and to everyone, is really making managing your brand a seamless experience, or in other words, making your job as a marketer seamless. So just a little bit about the presenters today. So I'm Tessa, the CEO of IntelligenceBank. My background includes working at BBDO and Ogilvy on international accounts, and I've been the CMO of a technology company. So I'm 100% familiar with all of the brand management issues you face in managing brands amongst diverse stakeholders. And my colleague David Porter, who runs our U.S. office in LA, is here with us today, where he leads account management and sales. And David's been implementing marketing software for clients for the past 15 years, so he has some great case studies to share with us. With regards to IntelligenceBank, we have offices in the U.S., Australia, Canada, and the U.K., and Arnaud Lagarde, who runs our European office, is here with us on the call as well. And so in thinking about what we do every day is that we love helping brands, both large and small, consumer or B2B, manage their brand compliance processes. And one of our favorite clients is Tahiti Tourism. From a small island in the middle of the Pacific, they use their brand portal to market the lovely islands of Tahiti to the world. And their brand hub, which is translated, really makes it easy for them to launch their recent brand upgrade and also ensure brand consistency kind of anywhere around the world. So we'll start with the question, why branding? Well, branding is basically everything. It sets companies apart from competitors in commodity markets, and it makes choice in the retail aisle a seamless experience. So this is something, as marketers, we all kind of know and love and agree with. And ultimately, what branding does is it gives companies their why. A really good resource that explains this concept of why branding and what is your why is Simon Sinek's website. So I've put the address here, and you can also look at it for his TED Talk on YouTube. It's a wonderful way of thinking about what your why for your brand is, and it'll literally change the way you think about branding and communications. It's a little old. I think it was 2009 or 10, but it's a great reference point. So what is the why that we're actually talking about in branding? And then we'll talk about how this gets leveraged in bringing your brand to life. So the why is really why a business even exists. It's both the why and how it makes money, and it's the role that it plays in the market. Branding is also why people come to work every day. So, you know, it's not all about money, but it's really branding is what inspires them and drives them to do their best for the businesses and to your customers. And branding also is what drives and guides how we interact with investors, customers, and even partners. So when we think about branding, we need to always remember that branding is not just about design, but rather it's a vision for a company that's expressed creatively. And I guess the trick for marketing departments is, how do you get all of your staff, your partners, and your customers drinking the same branded Kool-Aid around the world, or from whichever media channel that you're marketing with. So when we think about what makes up a brand and what should be included in our brand guidelines, it's not just about white space around the logo or the color palette, but rather what the brand strategy is, and how can design really affect the culture of the organization. So we think of it in three parts: so strategy, design, and culture. So a lesson that I've recently relearned from one of our big banking clients is that a good branding and brand consistency isn't just about the tip of the iceberg. So when you're thinking about branding, if you're paying a tier one agency, lots of money to make amazing, beautiful advertising with high production values, creating quality brand messages is very easy. I guess what's hard to achieve is brand consistency and ensuring that everything else the company does is on brand, especially when everything else, with regards to customer notifications, call center scripts, payment notices, uniform catalogs, trade ads, they're written by a range of people with varying degrees of creative ability, skill, and of course taste. And so therefore, as marketers, it's our job to make it as easy as possible for people to be on brand and also to stay on brand. So that's why we believe that you must bring your brand to life. And doing this as part of your digital asset management platform is a really good place to start, because usually your DAM is your first point of call to start the creative process. So with that said, while most of our DAM clients have built-in brand hubs, we do work with some clients, especially large retailers, who have a separate brand hub to their regular DAM. So they work in conjunction, as their DAM is more of an archive or a production-oriented software platform versus marketing operations. So again, ideally they're together, but you can run them separate, and lots of large companies do. So thinking about the DNA of your brand guidelines, at minimum, they need to have the following elements. First is starting with your why. Why do you do what you do? Then you flesh out the brand strategy, the positioning, the values, your brand signatures, and also your tone of voice. And from that, what naturally flows is the visual identity, which includes logos, colors, fonts, layouts, imagery, and lots of other items. So this is kind of marketing 101, and all of you know this, and all of you, I'm sure, have very robust, amazing brand guidelines that look great and are very useful. So the reality is that marketers know this, but there is a problem. And the problem is that people don't read, they especially don't read 300-page brand guidelines PDFs. So, how many times have you had to resend guidelines out, or, look at bad creative that is clearly off-brand and you sent the PDF out 5,000 times? And it's also, extremely painful to keep track of every agency person who comes and goes from your agency to ensure their designs also are on brand. So, kind of a joke that we have here at IntelligenceBank is that, I'm sorry, breast script isn't in our brand guidelines, and breast script keeps popping out on, corporate communications all the time. So if this sounds familiar, it's time to create an online brand hub. And what this does is it helps your internal staff, your agency partners, and your trade partners create a consistent brand, because it's easy to access and it's not something that just sits on your desktop or hard drive. So when you put your brand guidelines online, especially when they're part of your DAM, you have the opportunity to create not just a place for people to go, but actually a brand management process. So not only are your team accessing the correct images, but now you can show, not tell, about the brand in a really engaging way. And most importantly, you can create a creative approval process. So without a lot of effort, you can enable others to do their own work, yet approve what goes out the door. So what I'm going to do now is hand it over to my colleague David, who's going to share with you some actual case studies and user feedback from clients from around the world who've created engaging brand hubs as part of their DAM. So we'll do a couple of case studies, and then we'll finish up with some tips on best practices as well. So David, I'll just hand it over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Tessa. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. So what does the data say? We recently asked our Tier 1 clients about what users thought was the primary role of an online brand hub. And across all of the clients that were surveyed, the answers were pretty clear. 54% said that the #1 reason to have a brand hub was to ensure work is on brand. So control and consistency, maintaining that with the brand hub. 28% said the #1 reason was to get inspiration from other creative works. And then 18% said that the primary reason was to learn more about the brand. So what the data is really telling us is that for any brand hub, you'll have different types of users. You'll have the graphic designers and agencies who use it as a technical reference point. And then we'll have internal staff that will use it to get inspiration and learn more about the brand. Okay, so when you're building a brand hub, it's important that you cater to the various audiences that are going to be accessing the site. Now, one of the reasons, that's one of the reasons why a workshop with discovery exercises is a great way to start any project. So user feedback that we've collected. Building brand hubs, is our day job. We see it, and we see a lot of things, and we hear a lot of things from our clients. And we wanted to share with you some of the common user feedback that we receive when we're implementing brand hubs. And this will hopefully give you some direction if you decide to do your own. And again, so the workshop with stakeholders to gather information is one of the important things when implementing any brand hub. So call it what it is. Don't get too fancy with names. Make sure that it's descriptive in what it is that you're trying to provide, and even include the word brand hub within the site name. I'm busy. I need to get in and out, and search needs to be great, or my experience isn't. So people, if there's a path of least resistance that isn't the brand hub, they'll go there. If it's walking down the hall to ask their colleague, they'll go there. So we need to make things easy and quick for them to find, and search is a very important part of that process. Light boxes are a must. I keep going back for the same materials. So the ability to have a customized place where you can go and find your own materials, not only find the materials that are important to you, but also share those with other stakeholders that have similar needs. Mostly I want to view online content, but I need to be able to print it sometimes. So the ability to do that from directly within the brand hub. Don't make it hard for me to log in. So one of the things that we've provided is a self-registration option as well in the IntelligenceBank Brand Hub, which allows you to drive traffic to the site, to self-register, retrieve passwords, etc. Having everything, the images, guidelines, makes me remember to check the guidelines for updates. Okay, so that's one of the important things to keep in mind when you're developing your brand hub. Make downloading quick. When you're talking about color, let me download the Adobe swatch. When you're showing me logo variations, let me download them there and then. So really making it a dynamic experience where people can access the content directly from the guidelines that they're accessing, rather than having to go into a different area of the site to do that. Types of online brand guidelines. When thinking about the types of online brand guidelines, there's definitely a spectrum from fixed to static brand guidelines, which are usually publicly available, to guidelines that are also offer some sort of brand management process. For example, here you can see Skype and MailChimp are fixed examples, whereas Santos, NAB, and MasterCard are much more dynamic. And when you embark on your brand hub project, it's an important first question that you'll want to answer: the type of platform that you'd like to create for your users. So we'll flip over now to a couple of case studies with some clients that we work with. And the first one is National Australia Bank, or NAB, as they're known down under. So they're one of the biggest banks in Australia, with locations across Asia Pacific and the UK. And their brand architecture is very complex, with multiple sub-brands, partnership guidelines, and they also provide extensive guidelines across all media. What's nice about the Brand Hub structure is they offer two kinds of experiences. If you want to learn more about the brand and the strategy, you have the brand overview area. And for designers, you can easily go straight to the technical information and easily download very specific guidelines that you're looking for. So here's an example of how they showcase their imagery. The copy is succinct, and there are some excellent examples. NAB has been one of our clients for the past 5 years, and we're in the process of relaunching their brand hub with custom content pages, so they can use the same color information across different aspects of their brand guidelines. Then what that means for them is that when they update the color once, it's updated everywhere. And so, NAB are pioneers in online brand hubs and are always trying new technologies to bring their brand to life. So this next case study is Santos, which is a global energy company, who has a very dynamic brand hub. but they take a more direct approach. They use their Brand Hub to enable stakeholders to submit creative job requests where creative production is done centrally, but then also make easy to access logos, photos, maps, templates, and fact sheets. So one of the aspects of the Santos Brand Hub, which is really amazing, is their design gallery, which showcases some best-in-class work. So again, a lot of internal stakeholders really like this area because they can filter creative by business unit, type, flip through the carousel at their work, and that reflects back on the search and making things easy to access. So ensuring that content is appropriately tagged and labeled and retrievable. Another case study is destination hotels. So destination hotels is a great example of how they make accessing brand assets easy. So as a travel marketer, they manage different hotel brands, and they need to have access to materials, each with their own marketing departments. They have several different types of users accessing the platform, so they need to be able to they need to have self-registration for different stakeholders, the media, different hotel groups, to access images, logos, and branding, and make sure that it's permission-based based on the person who's logging in. So people with certain email addresses are automatically allowed into the platform, whereas media and others need to request access, and they are approved before they are allowed in, and the content that is delivered to them is tailored to that user group. Okay, so in addition to that, they also pull consistent content into their Sitecore CMS via the IntelligenceBank Brand Hub in order to ensure that there's consistency there as well. Okay, and finally we've got the Carlsberg case study. So Carlsberg has a bit of a different approach when it comes to creating consistency for trade marketing. They've got a lot of folks that are out on the road with iPads and handheld devices that need access to a library of assets that are approved for use. So from their Brand Hub, they create a process for their sales reps to order the branded materials with customizations directly from the Brand Hub. And what that has allowed them to do is maintain an element of control, but yet allow for creativity around assets that need to be either co-branded for organizations that they work with, or localized modifications. So they have that process in place where the sales rep orders those materials directly from the Brand Hub and requests changes to their trade marketing organization, and trade marketing will go ahead and either approve or decline or request additional modifications via workflows, approvals, or a mix of workflows, approvals, and annotations in order to keep on brand and provide an audit trail for future reference, again, maintaining control and consistency of the brand through the Brand Hub. So Tessa, I think it's back over to you.
Sure, thanks for that. And I guess one other thing just to mention as well, what's a really important way to kind of control brand consistency, but also give people flexibility to kind of customize their own work, is the idea of, web to print capability within your DAM. So it's really good for retail, franchisors, real estate, travel, and anybody who does trade marketing, which is, I guess, everyone. But so with web to print, I guess the way that works, for those of you who don't know or are not familiar with it, what you can do is you can upload an InDesign template and specify which areas of the template are editable. So it might be all of the copy so people can translate it into a different language. It could be for retailers, let's say for a bank, to change a phone number or put the branch manager's name there. So I guess what's great about it is that it's basically outsourcing the customization to the local area while maintaining the control, so they can't stretch the logo or become ultra creative with your templates. So I guess the next section that we'll talk about now is really tips to bringing your brand guidelines to life. And so what we'll do is we'll share with you kind of three I guess, scenarios from actual clients that we just think are really interesting and are kind of an innovative way to ensure brand consistency through a DAM platform. I guess the first one is visually explaining brand values. So if we think about your brand and your why, brand values are, of course, very important parts of your brand. But the problem is that they're very difficult to visually interpret in communication. So especially when you're working with international offices who don't have English as their first language, you can become very literal with translations, or the work becomes very literal. Also, if you have less savvy creative people who are working on things, or also people who aren't naturally visual. So I think we all know who these people are within our organizations, and I won't stereotype, but there are definitely people who need to understand what your brand values are and what they mean visually who aren't visual people. So the problem is that values are really hard to dramatize. So in this case study, there's a company that we worked with who had a brand value of being surprising. And that was a really kind of core part of who they were, because with this value, they wanted to have an edge in their communications by always surprising and delighting their customers. But unfortunately, this brand value of surprising was taken very literally by some within the company. And once they launched their new brand positioning, they saw all of these, the corporate communications group saw all of these images with animals popping up doing weird things. So they'd have like a squirrel with a Superman costume, or a donkey drinking wine. And when the marketing team was questioning their colleagues, saying, tell me what you were thinking when you put this in an ad, they would say, well, a squirrel being Superman is surprising, so that's on brand, isn't it? So, it's all up to interpretation. So the solution that we had for them was to create within their brand hub a section called More or Less, which basically visually explains brand values visually. So this is something that that I did a couple of times when I was at Ogilvy, and it's a winner when you are doing your online brand platform. So what we have in some brand platforms is a more or less guide. So it's basically a visual overview of, you have your brand value, and what do you mean by that? So, for example, for IntelligenceBank, one of our brand values is we get you as a client. But when we talk about this brand value, it's collaborative. We work with our clients versus a more studious. We're looking at exactly everything that you're doing. So this guideline and this template is a really good way to kind of communicate that. So if you don't have a brand hub yet, we do have this template available on our site. So you go to intelligencebank.com, digital asset management, and there's a little resources section, and you can download it for free, and there's no kind of sign up or anything that you need to do to access that. But it's a really great way to kind of visually couch kind of what you mean by different brand guidelines. So the second, I guess, tip or lesson that we want to share is, and this is really, really important, is to teach tone of voice to everyone who writes anything within your organization. So, and when I say everyone who writes anything, I'm talking about anybody who is writing something for an audience. So if you buy into the fact that everything from the tip to the bottom of the communication iceberg that we talked about needs to be on brand, as marketers, it's really your job to teach your broader team what tone of voice really means. So the problem that we have is that most communications are not on brand. So this is an example of a bank letter. So I don't know what bank it is. I just found it on the internet, hence the fuzzy quality. But it's pretty harsh. And it probably, if you looked at what this bank's corporate values were, it probably doesn't reflect what the company really wants to engage with their customers. So as a marketer, how do you get people who write these sorts of letters, like the credit or the legal department, for instance, to create copy that reflects your values and your tone of voice? So the solution is really to teach people how to write. So it's actually not hard, and it's really a lot of fun. And one of our clients who works with, he works with a brilliant writing consultancy, and I can give you this guy's name. He's this, charming Scottish guy who basically gets people who are not creative to write beautifully. And what they do is they run these workshops where they have different parts of the business who attend these workshops, and they take, some mundane letters that the organization has to get out, obviously. And they have people write these letters as if they were Buddha or as they were a more controversial character such as Donald Trump. And by doing that, what they're doing is they're teaching people how to embrace a tone of voice and how to really write the way that this company wants to write. So it's really amazing when people are seeing these personas and what people come up with. So I actually attended one of these workshops, and we literally had people from the compliance department wrote the most beautiful, home loan letter you could think of from Buddha, and it was beautifully written, and the person who wrote it couldn't believe it, and it just is a really nice way of reinforcing how to embrace values and brand personality. So everyone, we believe, is a copywriter deep down, and these credit letters and the stuff that the company has to put out becomes a lot better when they are on brand. So while running an in-person workshop might not be cost-effective for some of you, you can definitely do online tutorials and kind of showcase this and have people do this a part of your e-learning systems even. And if anyone wants this consultant's details, shoot me an email and I'll do an introduction. You'll be really happy you did, because this guy's amazing. So I guess the last tip is really last but not least, but a really time-efficient way to manage brand quality and consistency is to have a brand inbox. So you can give people tools such as the brand guidelines online, tutorials, the fonts, the color swatches, but at the end of the day, you're the brand steward. And if you don't have a process, people, as David mentioned before, will find workarounds to how to get things done. And so without the easy, and again, the operative word here is easy, way to have a brand approval process, email trail chaos happens, and people will simply work around the system and do their own work without marketing's approval. So I guess our solution for that as part of your DAM is that in your DAM you have a brand inbox. So you can have a form for creative approvals that work really well, and you can have people upload their files, upload briefs, ask you questions specifically. And what's really nice about it is that you can all the approvals are email triggered. So if you're away from the office and you're on your phone, you can actually just have a quick look at it and get it done. And so when it's part of your DAM and not a separate system, and actually gets used because people are going there to get the creative anyway. So again, this kind of marrying up of the digital asset management experience with the brand management experience is kind of a nice way to kind of keep everything together versus having to go to different systems. So that wraps up the presentation side of the webinar. So we can go to some questions. And David, I think you've been receiving some questions from the audience. Did you want to maybe read out a couple of the questions, then we can go from there?
Yeah, sure. I've got a few here, Tessa, that are coming in. So this one is, how long does it take to set up a brand hub?
That's kind of how long is a piece of string. So I guess it really depends on, as David mentioned before, kind of knowing what you want to do. So as an example, we've launched a brand hub with a large global organization who is based in the UK. They had major offices in the US as well. We did that in like 3 weeks with 300 users. So they were very organized. But a lot of times what people want to do is they want to use their own creative. So while we have brand guideline templates, you spend all this time and money on your brand and you want it to look amazing online. So I would say usually kind of the average is about 3 to 4 months by the time you get the design done and then have all the assets loaded up in there. And that's going from DAM and Brand Hub together.
Okay, great. And this is something that is somewhat related. Do you have existing templates, or do you create them from scratch?
We have both. So we do have existing templates in the system where you can literally go in and edit the HTML or CSS and drop in images straight from the DAM into the Brand Hub templates. But I would say 75% of our clients do it from scratch, and the reason, again, is that you can just have a lot of fun with the design as well. So you saw the Santos Brand Hub, like their pages look incredible, and they're very colorful, that represent, obviously, what they do. So just having kind of the standard brand guidelines templates that look like everyone else, that's kind of not what you want to do. But it is available if budgets are concerned.
Okay, great. And how do brand inbox approvals work?
Yeah, so that really depends on what your process is. So typically, so we can, I guess, map to any process, but usually what happens is that when people submit a piece of work, more than one person gets the request, and the way that we set up the approvals is that one of, let's say, 3 to 5 people can sign off on creative, and that way you don't have bottlenecks. So when the work is submitted, someone's on it pretty soon. And we work with a large kind of sporty national sporting organization, and in their, I guess, creative approval process, they have to approve creative from sponsors within 48 hours, and that's just part of their contract. So they've got to turn it around not only from the brand team, but they also have to get legal and commercial to sign off. So by having multiple people in charge of I guess that process, you don't have bottlenecks, which is really important, because if people have to wait too long, it breaks down, and then people do the old email way or don't ask at all. So that's the best way it works.
Okay, fantastic. And were the branded documents customized using a third-party DAM system?
No. So usually what happens is your internal designers or your agency actually designs them, and then we code them, or we have designers that can work. But usually what we like to do is work with the client's designers, because they know and love the brand as much as our clients do. So it's probably best to have those people working on the templates.
Okay. And next question is, it is so difficult to keep the Brand Hub current and updated all the time. What is the suggested frequency?
The suggested frequency is that it becomes part of your business process. So the problem with it is that you've got to, as a company, make a commitment to this as your central hub. And it does take time, and it is a change to do things, but it's worth it in the end, because our clients save anywhere from like 3 to 4 hours a day by just having people self-serve. So the amount of time it might take your team to upload assets or to do what they need to do might take a little bit of time, and it might be kind of painful to start that as part of your daily routine, but in the end it saves you a lot of time. So we always recommend also, so one of the other, I guess, pitfalls that some clients do is they'll say, okay, Mike Jones, he's going to be the one who's in charge of our brand hub, and there's only one person in charge of it. So if Mike's sick or Mike leaves the company or whatever, it kind of falls over. So when you have multiple people, so it just becomes part of your daily life, just like you log on to the internet every day. When you do creative, you upload the assets. And we also have, we also encourage a lot of our clients to also get their vendors to upload too. So you can create private workspaces for your different agencies or other partners, and so when they have the work that's being done, they're uploading. So it just becomes part of your everyday.
Okay, great. And another question's come in here is it advisable to segregate some assets used by creatives, i.e. needing approval from the marketing group?
Definitely. So one of the ways that you can do that is through permissions. And so what we do is if there are assets that don't have talent usage rights, and I think we'll probably do another webinar on the whole managing talent thing, but what you can do is for, let's say, logos or color palettes, or whatever it is that's pretty freely downloadable, which is fine. You can just have those on. Anybody who has access to the Brand Hub can actually download them. And then for other images that have, let's say, talent usage rights, or they're high res, or you just want your designers and you don't want to see them ending up on a company internal poster or whatever it is, you can put a workflow approval on that. So before they're downloaded, people must ask for approval. And then once you approve it, then that person gets a one-time link. And then what's nice about that is that you've got an audit trail on who's actually downloaded the image. So if there are any sort of talent or copyright issues around that image, you can actually see where it's gone. So when it's time for renewal, you can get an alert on that, and then also be able to track where it's being used to see if people want to renew it. So we had a really interesting case study with, it's a large airline in Asia Pacific, and they have a lot of, I guess, talent, kind of movie star talent from China who are in their ads. And the problem that they had is they had, some of these, beautiful, people who are in these images, and then people said, oh, I want to use that image in this thing for Europe or whatever. And the problem that they had is that, these movie stars had very strict talent usage rights around those images. So having that process in place is really important.
Okay, great. A few more questions coming in here. Is it better to have a hybrid or cloud-only storage?
I think that depends on your organization and how you want to use your DAM and your brand hub, rather. So if you have like literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of terabytes of data, I would recommend you do self-hosting 100%, because the benefits of cloud diminish when you have, if you're using this as an archive, the benefits of cloud diminish. But most clients, when they use a brand hub specifically, is that they're not concerned with archives, they're concerned with the creative that we're going to use here today. They don't care about artwork that's 3 to 5 years old. So it really depends on your organization. So again, I guess to answer the question, if you want to use your DAM as an archive, then definitely do it on premise, and we help clients with that. And then, or you can do SaaS in the cloud. But it's also helpful to have, I guess, a desktop uploader to kind of get all the assets into the cloud. So I guess one of the questions before was, how do you maintain it? Well, by having these little desktop uploaders, it's really easy to kind of get assets in there, because it's like a Dropbox functionality where you kind of just drag and drop the assets into the platform.
Okay, that's great. And is everything demonstrated in this webinar available from one vendor?
Oh yeah, so this is basically what we do at IntelligenceBank DAM. So yeah, we have a very kind of flexible backend. So you saw, I guess, the Carlsberg example, you saw the Santos and the NAB example. So I guess what we provide, in addition to, I guess, the DAM, I guess the traditional DAM functionality, is we have forms and databases and workflow, all with email alerts. And we also have what we call custom pages. They're basically web pages that you can custom design on top of the DAM. So it's super flexible, and it's and what's nice about it is it can really look and feel like your own site. So there's nothing worse than having a brand hub, which is representing you, and it looks like a software company. So provide that flexibility.
Okay, another question. Does your desktop application sync from network folders?
It syncs. So the way that our desktop uploader works is that you literally have your folder structure on your desktop, and then you can drag and drop it into the uploader. So yeah, so you'd have to kind of do an action to make it sync, but when you do that, yes, it does sync.
Okay, I think that's all of the questions that have come in now. Are there any other questions you want to submit? Anybody want to submit any other questions while we're still have some time left?
So well, if not, it was really nice talking to everyone, even though we were kind of talking at you. It wasn't really that interactive, but If you'd like a copy of the webinar, David is really happy to send that. So if you want to just email David, we can give you a recorded copy of the webinar or just the presentation. If you'd like the more or less template, again, just go to IntelligenceBank.com and go to the digital asset management area, and then there's a resources section, and you can just click a button and download a PowerPoint presentation just to show you kind of how that works. But again, we recommend putting that online, obviously. And if you need to get in touch with me for anything, my email address is tessa.court@intelligencebank.com. There's our Twitter handle. And I guess last but not least, a shameless plug for the Henry Stewart Dam Conference in LA. So you can save $100 as a webinar attendee using a discount code, and that's where you register. So if you are in Los Angeles, where our office is, and if you'd like to come to the conference, that's where you can do it. Okay, so thanks everyone.
And also, one final thing, yeah, Tessa, if anybody is interested in catching up for a coffee or an introduction, I will be attending the event next week as well. So you can shoot me an email and I'd be happy to meet up and have a chat.
Okay, thank you.